Hello, hello. All right, we're here in Tbilisi, in Georgia, and we're going to talk today about source income. What is source income about? So you might have heard this thing, it's all over the internet, about territorial taxation. Okay, that's a form of taxation basis is what they call it. And the idea is that they tax you only on local source income. So some countries, tax you on the worldwide income, everything that you make everywhere, and others only tax you on the local source income. Now, pretty much all of them will tax you on the local income, unless they're talking about some really specific zero tax countries like Bahamas, Cayman Islands, but those are super rare. The tricky thing is, what do they mean when they say local source income? So for example, I can have a US LLC and I can only be taxed on what's called effectively connected income, US trade or business, US source income. I can have a Hong Kong company and only be taxed on Hong Kong income. I can have a Malaysian company or a Singapore company or a Panamanian company or a Costa Rican company. But that concept is where everybody gets messed up. So I have people call me all the time and they get obsessed with this idea of their customers, right? So they'll say, oh, well, I'm concerned because my customers are in the US. Well, you don't get taxed necessarily based on where your customers are. You might, but you might not as well. So it's really, really important to understand this concept. So let's start with the first basic principle, which is this thing called permanent establishments, okay? So a permanent establishment is really broad actually, but think of a permanent place of business. Okay, so if you have some sort of permanent place of business, and you can go through a tax treaty and read the definition, or you can call us and we'll go over it with you. That will usually result in you being taxed to the extent that you have income associated with it. So let's say I had an office and I had people working out of that office. That would probably be a permanent establishment. Let's say I had a store. That would probably be a permanent establishment. Now, the thing that's kind of crazy is a person can be considered a permanent establishment. So you don't actually need a physical space. So if you have somebody who is in a managerial role with the ability to what they'll call habitually conclude contracts, they might be considered a permanent establishment and you might be taxable. So that's the first thing you can pay attention to is that. The next is in Hong Kong, and a lot of the world uses something similar to what's called an operations test. Meaning, do you have your operations somewhere? So way, way more than where your customers are is where the operations take place. Super important, okay? If you have, again, this kind of goes back to, hey, where are the people who are doing the work of your business? If you have those people in Hong Kong, you're probably taxable in Hong Kong. It doesn't matter where the income's coming from. It doesn't matter where the transfer is coming from, what bank account it's going into. It doesn't matter if the customers are in another country. It's probably taxable in Hong Kong if the work is done in Hong Kong. So pay attention to permanent establishments, where the work is taking place, and then for certain types of income, that is capital gains, the sale of real property, usually we're talking about real estate, then where that is, usually you're taxable. For royalties, it'll be based on where the customers are. For interest, it will be based on where the person paying the interest is from, generally. Dividends is usually where the payee is also from. So these are kind of loosely the rules. Again, call us if you have a specific question, but just be aware, it doesn't matter where your company is based, it doesn't matter where you're based, usually you're taxable on local source income. And if any of these things is triggered, you can be taxable. So when we design a proper structure, what we want to do is we want to make sure that you're not triggering local source income rules in a high tax place. You want to trigger them in a low tax place. So I hope that helps, and we're going to see you guys on the next video. We're going to go and have some water.